Welcome inside our Busch Stadium studios, nice and steamy here for August 2023. Joe Pfeiffer, Larry State, I'm Brett McMillan, and we're going to laugh a lot today because Brad Thompson, former Cardinals pitcher, Cardinals broadcaster, is sitting down in the chair. Brad, we've been looking forward to having you in. There's just so many, you're like the Forrest Gump of baseball. So many different stories. Forrest Gump of Cardinal baseball. I feel like you've touched so many different careers. I was thinking about Scott Rowland this weekend. We were all in Cooperstown, and you've got a debut story. I know you've told with that before. Tony La Russa, all those great teams that you were on in the mid-2000s, and then your whole career with broadcast. So I don't know where to start, guys. Where should we start with Brad?
Well, we don't need no middle-aged rookies, but we have him here. Anyway. There's a lot of ways to go with Brad, Larry, right?
Well, sure. And we just, some of us were fortunate to be in Cooperstown last weekend to honor Scott Rowland. Of course, one of your teammates on the World Series championship team.
Did you see a bunch of those highlights they were showing? Guess who was pitching on some of those? This guy rockets down the line. He's flagging those things. You're welcome, Scott.
You put him in the hall, didn't you?
Well, you know what? No, he saved me just a couple of runs on my ERA, which wasn't pristine. That had to be fun for you guys.
Oh, it was fantastic. And you have a pretty funny story about Scott as your teammate. I think maybe your first
Major League debut. Yeah, Major League debut. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was Mother's Day 2005, and I had been up in the big leagues already for probably like 5 days. And day one, Tony, knowing full well, he knew that he wasn't going to get me in the game. I didn't know. It was like just kind of get the adrenaline going. I throw a couple of balls off the backstop, and then they just put an actual good pitcher in, and I got the adrenaline flowing, and we were good to go. But I didn't pitch until 5 days later, and get the call. I knew we were going to. I knew I was going to pitch. We scored like 11 runs in the first inning. We were up quite a bit. I was like, this looks like my kind of game here. This is going to be good. I ended up coming in, and I came in the seventh, pitched the 7th, 8th, and 9th, but I remember jogging in, and this is Busch 2, right? So it's the old stadium. You know how big Busch 2 was and how it would surround you. And I made the mistake of when I'm trotting in, I kind of did this one, a little look around and see what we're dealing with, and boy, there's a lot of people. So I throw my warm-up pitches, throw it around the horn like normal, and I'm still kind of like taking it in a little bit, and Scott, playing third base, obviously, he walks over with the baseball, and he looks at me, and he's like, your parents here? I'm like, oh, they didn't make it yet. They're going to come in the next homestand. He's like, oh, okay, great. It's like, a lot of people, huh? Like, yeah, Mr. Rowland, a lot of people here. And he flicks me the ball, and he goes, well, good luck. And then just walks back off to third, and then probably saved 4 or 5 doubles down the line. But it was just such a funny, you guys know Scott so well. One thing, and I'm glad it came out in his Hall of Fame speech, he's so funny. Yeah. Like, he's hilarious. And he can do it with the dry humor and the sarcasm, or he can just cut you up if he wants to. And that was kind of one of those moments where it was an icebreaker. It's like, lots of people, huh? Well, good luck. Like, it was just kind of made me laugh a little bit and kind of get into it. So, so blessed to be able to come up when I did. You think about that 2005 team. That was a veteran-laden team. Yeah. The youngest guy on that team was Yadier Molina, who already felt like a vet. You knew he was taking over for Matheny. You knew that he was the heir apparent. He was going to be there forever, and you got a team with Albert and Scott Rowland and Jim Edmonds. You had dudes all over the place, and I come trotting in day one, and it really felt like a movie. My flight was late when I got called up, and so I didn't get to the ballpark until must have been like 5:30, 5:45 for a 7 o'clock game, and the hustle before a baseball game. And after security let me in, they didn't believe that I was a player. It took a while.
They still don't have fantasy.
No, I know. I bring my ID everywhere. I have
doesn't work.
So much. I over-credential at this point. But once they finally let me in, I remember opening the door and it just felt like a movie. It's like Matt Morris is going this way, Pujols this way, Rowland, Reggie Sanders. It was like the craziest thing just seeing all of this. So blessed to be able to come up with such great veteran leaders and people, Jason Isringhausen to this day, one of my best friends, one of the best mentors that I've had. I think that's so important, and it's something that's so great about the culture of this organization is you have that, and then guys pass it down to the next one. I feel like it's a very special thing.
Why do you think it is that it's that way? Because, I mean, ultimately in the big leagues, if you're coming into the clubhouse, you've got a potential to take somebody else's job.
Yeah.
And so throughout the history of the game, it's not always been that way. What do you think it is that made Izzy say, hey, this is how we do it?
He saw my skill set first. He's like, my job is going to be just fine. Like, I'm good to go. Might as well help this kid out. But, like, no, it just comes down to building a culture. And you guys have been doing this podcast for a long time. You know every Cardinal that's ever worn the uniform. You've had a chance to sit down and talk to a lot of them. Like, the culture is real, and the idea of like the quote unquote Cardinal Way is real too. Like it's not just the on the field, the X's and O's, but it's how you represent yourself all the time. How do you build up the next guy? When somebody walks in the door, guess what? We're teammates. How do I make him better? Like those things really matter. And when you focus on those things, and when somebody does it for you, it makes you want to do it for somebody else. And when you see somebody acting a certain way, you want to act the way that they do. You watch somebody work hard, you want to work like they do. Chris Carpenter is a great example for me. I always felt like I was a hard worker. I didn't have the skill set to not be a hard worker. Like I couldn't just show up and be like, well, I'm better than everybody here. And that started in Little League. Like I always had to work really hard. And I thought I worked hard until I saw Chris Carpenter work. Like, oh my God, that's what he's doing right now? It's day after a start, and like he'll come in, he's sopping wet. I go, when did we get a pool? He's like, I just got done running. Like, you look like that after you ran? Like, what am I doing? I gotta do more.
In fairness, he looks
he
like
sweats
that
so
after
much.
He speaks.
If he's doing this podcast right now in this room, he's going through 3 shirts. And in 5 minutes, we're all tarps off. Like this is happening here soon. A little muggy down here. But like stuff like that, when you watch people work a certain way, and when you watch people treat people a certain way, and organizationally it matters, and top to bottom it matters. It mattered for Tony. It mattered for Walt Jocketty at the time. It mattered for Bill DeWitt. Right now to this day, it matters to Bill DeWitt. Yeah. It matters to John Mozeliak, the entire front office. It matters to Ollie Marmol. Like the accountability and the being a great teammate and the ushering this whole Cardinal Way to the next generation, it still matters, and that's why this organization is going to continue to have success.
It's interesting you say that. We when we were in Cooperstown, we took some of our corporate sponsors and clients up on the trip with us, and one of them pulled me aside and she said, "It is amazing the history of the club and the success, but how good these people are."
Yes.
And, you can't always nail that 100%, but it is part of our DNA. Like, we want to bring the best players we can into this experience and this setting, but you want them to treat each other well and treat the fans well, and we've been incredibly fortunate.
I remember one of my first big league spring training was actually the same year that I ended up getting called up, was 2005. And I will never forget how kind and gracious when it was my first time getting to meet a guy like Red Schoendienst, and spend time like talking about my family, where I'm from, like what I'm into. He made fun of me because I don't hunt, like like stuff like and seeing Lou Brock. I'm walking out and there's Lou freaking Brock
Sweetest
right there,
man ever.
walking out to the field. And Mr. Thompson, how are you doing today? And I'm like, oh my God, Lou Brock knows my name. It was on my jersey, okay, guys? It was like right there. But he gave me the Mr. Thompson. I'm like, Mr. Brock, I'm doing great. Getting to sit and have a conversation with Bob Gibson in the dugout. Like, these are things that you will I'll never forget. Like, never forget these moments. And why did those guys continue to come back and give to the organization? They loved it. They loved the organization. They loved being a part of it. They loved giving back to the game of baseball, but they also truly knew that they were appreciated for being there. And one thing that we need to keep doing as broadcasters, I know that you guys do, and you guys are the biggest key of keeping these alumni, keeping us alumni all involved, is we got to keep realizing that it's a special thing, and we need to respect these guys when they're around.
Yeah, absolutely, regardless of how long they were a Cardinal.
For sure,
and
that's what I'm trying
special.
to say. Let's get the middle reliever guy. Let's elevate him a little.
Hey,
bit.
you had your second bobblehead this year.
Awesome, by the way. Yes, had gray hair too. Thank you guys. It looked pretty
the
good.
likeness was good. It really did.
Yes,
they nailed it.
And same skin tone and everything, like very, very alabaster. Yeah. It was nice.
Yeah, it's about right on.
when you talk about some of your teammates, as you just did, and you talk about how you kept, Scott Rowland, a lot of those ground balls came from you.
No big deal.
It's funny, as a broadcaster especially, I was saying to Joe earlier, to hear you talk about yourself, somebody would be surprised to hear that you even made it to the big leagues, because your self-deprecating humor, you talk about yourself as if you were one of the 20,000 players ever to make it to the big leagues. And so I was wondering, were you always that way when you were playing? And in terms of your broadcasting career, is that something that you knew you wanted to do, or how did that whole sense of humor that you have, where did that come from?
Well, first of all, I didn't play well enough to not be a broadcaster. Now, I thought I was going to play so well that I'd never have to work again. So here we are. I'm working again right now. Which doesn't feel like work. But the overall, like the self-deprecating thing is, it's a crutch. I mean, it's like, I'll make fun of me before you get to, is kind of where we're at with that. But I think that people do relate. Like, I love to laugh. I love to have fun. And I think that I can get into some things when I do something like that. Like, oh, you thought that was bad. Check that, I did this. But then really dig in. I will tell you this, like with the self-deprecating humor, when I was playing, and I know this will be funny if you go look at my stats, I thought I was the best player on earth. When I was on the mound, I thought I was the toughest guy in the world. I thought that I was going to get everybody out, and I didn't care who you were stepping in the box. I thought I was better than you. Now, that might be a crazy mentality, but when you're 6 foot tall, you throw 88 to 91, you've got a sinker and a slider, and both of them are they're average, you better have that, right? You better have that next level. So I always had that confidence in myself, but it's not something that I was telling everybody about. It wasn't like a boastful confidence, and I still have that same confidence. Like, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it great, and I want to be prepared for it, and I want to make sure that I don't get done with it. I don't want to get done with this podcast and be like, oh, boy, if I would have just done this, or if I would have thought about this. Like, you're going to miss something. You're always going to have something that you wish you would have done, but not being prepared is something that always bothered me as a young player. You get drafted, see all these first rounders making all this money. I look around, he doesn't do anything, but he's like supremely talented. I wish I had that talent. Like, I wish I had what he had with my work ethic, and I could turn into something special. I wouldn't have to work right now. But like, that's something that I just always felt like I had, is that inner confidence. But I like to have fun too. Like, it's one of my favorite things is to laugh. If I'm listening to a radio show, I want to laugh. Watching a TV show, I want to have a good time. I want to be informed, of course. I want to be informed of what's going on. And this is something that I remember when I'm doing the broadcast, and Danny Mack helped me a ton. Chip Carey has helped me a ton. But the team and the players that are out there on the field, that's the story. Like, that's what's going on, and that's what we're going to focus on the most. I might take a shot at myself every once in a while, or like have some fun with something else, but like, this is the story, and this is what we're talking about, and these are the best of the best to do it, and we're going to tell you how they're doing it. We're going to tell you why they're doing it. We're going to tell you what they're thinking, or what we think they're thinking, and if we're wrong about that, somebody's wife or mom or dad is going to yell at us, and like that's kind of how it goes. We got to focus. Like, those guys are the focus, and we're just very fortunate to get to talk about it. It's almost like you're a fan with access. Like, it really is kind of that feeling.
When you were a player, I think fair to say probably interviews post-game not your favorite, which is most players find themselves in that boat. I mean, is that a fair statement, you think?
Are you bringing up a particular interview?
Well, I wasn't
are you
going
leading?
to. I wasn't
is
going
this a
to.
leading question?
Brad, I wasn't leading. I was,
okay.
There's the famous kicked puppy line, but
leading.
You brought it up.
Leading. Your Honor, leading.
I guess my question where I am leading is, most guys stand in front of their locker, and hey, for any of us in any profession, it's hard to answer questions when things don't go well, or even when they do, because you just don't want to explain the minutia. You want to go out there, you want to do your work well, you want to go home. So at what point did it kind of dawn to you, hey, I have the gift of gab, so to speak, and perhaps really?
No, never. So I understand the question, and I talk a lot, obviously. Here we are again. But no, I never thought about doing this for a living. I never thought that after baseball I would like to broadcast. I never thought about it in school, and I just went, I went to a small school in Utah. I got drafted out of junior college, but I had signed to go to UNLV, and I was going to get into law. Like, I wanted to be an attorney. This is the way. I guess I could have talked a lot there too. But that's the direction that I was heading. Is that I wanted to do that. And as a player, the role of the reliever. And I started games too, and you talk more, as a starter. But it's kind of like being an offensive lineman in football. Like, they talk to you when there was holding. It's like, Brad, what happened on this one?
Sure.
Well, here we go again.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what happened. You saw it. But it was something where I wasn't short necessarily, but like I wasn't going to give you a ton either. I'm going to tell you what happened and go from there. Yes, I did have the one comment where I was asked after the game, hey, Brad, this is in Kansas City. I think I gave it like 8 runs in 2 innings, whatever it was. Maybe it didn't last 2 innings. But it was like, hey, Brad, where do we go from here? I don't know who it was, probably Jim Hayes, if I had to guess a question like that.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? I could have answered anything. I could have said probably to AAA, and that was probably the answer. But I said, I don't know, go find a puppy to kick. That was not the answer, turns out.
Yeah.
You know, Tony had his foundation.
Yeah.
ARF.
Of all rosters to be on
Animal
with that
Rescue
comment.
Foundation, ARF it
Yes.
was. Next day coming out to the dugout, I just hear, and when I hear the full name, I know I'm in trouble. I hear Bradley. I'm like, oh, crap. That's Tony. Yes, sir. Skipper, what's happening? He just said, did you say what I heard you said? I said, what part? He goes, you know what part? I said, yeah, I did. I thought it was a term. I thought it was like just slang term. He goes, it's not. And next time you win a game, you better adopt a dog. So then we got a second dog, and her name was Belle, and she's very sweet and great dog. But yeah, so dealing with the media initially was like not ever anything like I sought after as a player, and I never thought about doing it. The guy that got me into the media, though, is a former Cardinal. You guys know the story very well. Is Chris Duncan. Chris Duncan, God rest his soul. Yeah. Dunk would be doing this right now. Dunk would be sitting in this chair. Dunk would be up there with Chip Carey. Like, he was incredible.
King of the self-deprecating humor,
yes,
too.
Of course.
Oh, my gosh.
Him and I would get together. We didn't know after a conversation who was worse. Funny story along those lines of the deprivation thing. So I text Dunk. This is I'm playing independent ball, and this is after he got my foot in the door in the radio, and I'll get into that in a second. But I texted him. I went back playing independent ball, and I gave up 11 runs in the first inning of a game. 11 runs in the first inning. Now, I will have you know I went 7 innings in that game and only gave up 11.
You saved the pen.
Did save the pen. It was second part of a doubleheader. Second
nice
game.
work.
Had to do it. Had to wear it. But I text Duncan. I go, dude, I just gave up 11 runs in the first game. And it was the first inning. I had the thought in my mind. It was like very vivid of me taking off my jersey, throwing it in the stands, and just keep walking. Like I really thought about doing that after that inning. A few weeks later, I was done anyhow. I decided that was enough. But he texted me back. He's like, dude, that stinks. You're going to be fine. If it makes you feel any better, I struck out twice tonight in slow pitch softball. I'm like, dude, oddly, that makes me feel a little bit better. But it was Dunk when he was going through his health issues, and he had his brain tumor initially, and this was before anybody knew about it. It was kind of under wraps. He was working over at 101, and he was doing drive time radio on the fast lanes. Guy's incredible. Like, you hear Dunk once, you're best friends with him. Like, you love him. But he was going through his health issues. He's going to take some time off, and he passed along my number to the program director there, and he said, hey, I don't know if this guy's got any interest. He's in town. I think he'd do good. I think he'd have fun with it, and I think he'd enjoy it if you want to give him a call. So I got a phone call on a Friday from the program director asking if I could come in on a Monday. And it's the off season. It's all NFL. So I say, yeah, why not? My wife probably wants me out of the house by now. Like, this would be a good idea. Maybe I'll go in and check it out. I've been listening to Dunk. I love listening to him. So whole weekend, I mean, Saturday I'm digging in. It's college football. I'm taking crazy notes. Sunday NFL. Like, I feel like I've watched everything, done everything. I got all these notes. And I get one segment in. I get called into the hallway by the program director. And I walk out. I go, did I say the F word? Is this bad? Did I do it? He goes, no, man. He said, you sound great. Could you stay the rest of the week? I said, yeah, that'd be great. And then after that week, they asked me to stay the rest of the off season. And it got to the point where I was leaving to go play independent ball again, and they offered me to say, hey, we got a position for you if you want it. And I said, I can't do it. I love this, but I have to know that I'm done with baseball. Like, the last thing I want is that regret of, man, if I'd have gone back that 1 year, I could have done it, right? Boy, I don't have that. I don't have that at all. I went back. It didn't go great. That inning that I told you about, I decided my wife and I, we had our first son while I was playing independent ball. I came home for 2 weeks when he was born, went back out and played, and I was just like, this ain't right. I'm not going to make it back. So I called. I called ESPN to say, hey, any chance you still got a job available? I said, we've been keeping a spot for you. So they kept a spot for me and did it for 10 years up until this year doing it full time. So Chris Duncan is the only reason that I got into that. Duncan and I did a podcast together for a long time too. You'll like the name of it. It was called Redbird Rejects. Because Dunk used to always like to tell the story of getting traded. He's in the big leagues, and then he's in Pawtucket on a sloped bed watching a box TV with no remote. So we had some fun with that, breaking down Cardinal stuff. But yeah, Chris Duncan, one of my favorite teammates ever, one of my best friends ever. So he's the only reason that I got into the broadcasting in the first place.
And just no ego. That was the
None.
thing. And he, if anybody should have,
he grew up with like Canseco and McGuire. Like that was his upbringing was those guys. And you're right, he had no ego at all. And him and Shelly Duncan together, you get those two together. You want to talk about holding court and telling stories. And I mean, his parents and God bless his mom, Janine, who passed away with the same tumor, unfortunately. She was an angel putting up with those two because those boys got into trouble left and right.
And you got to pitch for one of the best pitching coaches ever in his dad, Dave Duncan. I mean, what was Dave like?
Dave was the best, man. So Dave wasn't necessarily, it wasn't like mechanics, right? It wasn't just, and he knew all those things, but he would pass those off. He had such a great relationship with Marty Mason, the bullpen coach for a long time for the Cardinals. But if you could execute his game plan, we live in a world of analytics now, and there's information everywhere, and like at our fingertips we could find stuff, and if you have access to all these expensive sites, you can get all this information. Dave was those expensive sites, and you'd seen the things that he traveled with, the cases.
I love the binder in the dugout.
Well, he'd have the binder. He'd have his huge binder that has all the information that all of these other teams, are trying to have. And he's got all your spray charts and all your heat maps and all the stuff that we have now. But it was in pen and paper, and we would travel. God forbid you had like a 3-city road trip because he's got a trunk. I mean, it was enormous, just full of information that he would lug around. But he was so incredibly prepared, and he did such a good job of fine-tuning what you do well to what to what the opposition struggles with, right? I've been in pitching meetings before where it's like, well, this guy can't hit a cutter, so bury your cutter in. I'm saying, I have no cutter. I don't have that. And I distinctly remember my first ever pitchers meeting with Dave Duncan. So go in, and that's kind of what it is. You're going in, and this is the relievers meeting. I was a reliever at the time, and the concept is in a relievers meeting is you go over how do you get somebody out one time, okay? Because usually you're not turning the lineup over as a reliever. If you are, you're a long guy. The game looks different. So how do you get them out one time? And we're going over every hitter, and I'm sitting here, I'm trying to retain all this information, and I get done coming out of the meeting, and, all veterans around me, they're walking out. I'm last walking out because I'm last in everything. I'm going to let those guys go, respect my elders. I'm walking out, and I feel like a big arm on my shoulder, and I look, it's Dunk. And he goes, hey, you know all that stuff that I just told you right there? I'm like, yes, sir, I was listening, I got it. He goes, forget it. Forget all that stuff. Take your sinker, throw it right down the middle, you're going to have success.
Wow.
And I was like, really? He's like, really? And my ball moved a lot.
Yeah.
Don't try to be too fine. I just tried to simplify it. Let me throw it down the middle, let me make it move, and then lo and behold, you got big league hitters that are beating the ball into the ground. Sometimes we try to do too much. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're ball one, ball two, you try to be perfect. We give everybody too much credit, but the trust in yourself and his knowing to tell me that, he probably saw me swimming in that meeting. He probably just saw my eyes flickering and oh God, what is he talking about? I got to get a cutter. I better get a 12-6 curveball. I got to get all these things. And he said, no, don't do any of that. Throw it right down the middle. And that's one thing when I get an opportunity to talk to young pitchers, especially that come up. It's not that you're always trying to grow and you're always trying to grow at this level. But remember what got you here. Mm-hmm. Have confidence in what you have. You don't have to do more when you get here. You have to do what you are doing, and that's why you're here. But it's easier said than done when you get on a big league mound and you got that third deck on the stadium.
Well, and we knew when you were on because your sinker darted. I mean, it was, and I think we talk about all the humor and the self-deprecating stuff, but I think we ought to be real for a moment and realize you had the incredible streak in the minor leagues that we can get to. But that 06 team does not have the success that they have. No chance without our bullpen, which was made up of a young nucleus that included you and Randy Flores and Tyler Johnson. I mean,
Josh Kinney.
And Josh Kinney. I
Adam
mean,
Wainwright by the end.
Adam Wainwright at the end. Yeah, I mean, that is unbelievable. When you look back and how you guys were flat out shut down in the postseason.
Yeah, and it came down to confidence, and that confidence was instilled by each individual, right? You have to have it in yourself. Like you're not going to have other people prop you up and then all of a sudden believe you're good. Like you have to have that inherently. But you also had great veterans that lifted everybody up too. I mentioned Jason Isringhausen a lot because he's one of my favorite teammates ever. And unfortunately for Izzy, he got hurt at the end of that season. That's where Adam Wainwright came in. Izzy was the biggest help during that you could ever ask for, and like that's being a great teammate. That's what we go back to talking about what being a Cardinal is all about, is propping guys up. And I learned so much from him and other guys out there. Ray King was a huge help for me as well. Like I love Ray. There were a lot of guys that just really you could lean on. But Izzy taught me how to succeed. Like succeeding, like you think, oh, succeeding's easy. You know how quickly you can get knocked off your horse in the big leagues? Like very fast. I remember just real quickly, I came into a game. It was against the Brewers, and I think it was Jason Marquis had struggled. He left one guy on, and I come in, throw a one pitch, get a double play. I'm like, boom. He's here. Yeah, no big deal. One pitch, double play. One pitch, 2 outs. Second pitch, Russell Branyan hit it off his face, off his actual face, on the big screen at Busch 2 in audio that gets played way too often in my life with Dan McLaughlin laughing as the ball goes up. So hit it off his face out there. Like, this game is humbling, right? Like, you think... to use a Dunkism. Dunk used to always say, when you think you're in, you're out. When you think you're out, you're in. Like this game can be maddening at times, but that veteran leadership there really helped the young guys get through it. And Dave Duncan and Marty Mason and Tony La Russa having the confidence to put Josh Kinney and Tyler Johnson in these huge games and put a rookie in Adam Wainwright in the 9th inning and Yadier Molina behind the plate ushering everybody through, still a young buck himself, but also had the poise and the presence of a veteran where he said something you said, okay, like you guys have talked to Adam. You've heard him tell the story so many times about pitch 1 to Beltran, right?
Right.
Like changeup.
Changeup.
Dude threw no changeups.
Yeah.
Like very rarely did he throw the changeup. And he called it. He's like, okay, seems right because Yachty thinks that that's the right thing. Like when you have that guy that has the conviction, you're going to have it as well. But the young bullpen was I mean, you had Roland and Albert and Jimmy. Certainly. I mean, you're anchored by that, but the young bullpen was incredible.
They were. It was unbelievable.
Randy Flores out there. That's at the beginning I said, like, there's all these different people and lives and careers that your career has kind of intersected with. Such a smart guy, runs, obviously, for people who don't know, runs the draft for the St. Louis Cardinals, an assistant GM. What was he like sitting around in the bullpen in the middle innings back in the day?
Sure, it's good for his job to tell what he was like. No, he's one of the best, and one of my favorite people in the game of baseball, one of my best friends. But he's hilarious. First of all, like one of the funniest guys that you will meet. Now in his current role, you don't see the humor as much. I'm sure people in the office
we miss him at fantasy camp.
Oh, don't we miss him at fantasy
my gosh,
camp? I mean, he was a
you two
treat.
together were a treat.
Just ping pong off each other. We'd have a little fun with that. But no, Randy, a character, would have a lot of fun. But when it came close to like Randy time, and like it was a little different, right? There was no 3-batter minimum. He could come in and get your biggest lefty in the biggest spot. And we talk a lot about that Game 7 of Adam Wainwright striking out Carlos Beltran. Well, the winning pitcher that game was Randy Flores,
exactly.
right? Like he came in, got some big outs, and got a ton of big outs in the postseason. When it came that time, he was as locked in as anybody. And again, he's not 97, 98. He knew how to pitch, and he was mean when he pitched, and he was confident when he pitched. And I just that confidence that he has, and now like the blend of the humor and the fact that he's just such a great person, like it all melds into a really good job for him now. But as a reliever, he was awesome, and he was fun to watch the way that he would approach things. And I think that you guys know this, and many Cardinal fans do. I think I've told the story many times, but Randy Flores, like, we're so close, and I was close with his family, and close, he's close with my wife, that we actually got him ordained, and he presided over our wedding. So I call him Reverend Flo. So whenever we see Flo, now I don't know if it was legit. We signed the paperwork. I think we paid for all the stuff. But his dad was a pastor in Las Vegas, so church background growing up, and just great family. So yeah, that was. I still remember, because we didn't tell anybody that Flo was going to be doing it. I still remember the face that I saw like dead center was Izzy, and standing up there at the altar, and Flo's there, and the groomsmen are there, and the bridesmaids are there, and the bride hasn't come in yet, and Izzy's face, and I won't mouth exactly what he did, but it was a what the heck kind of a face.
Imagine.
Like he was like, really? What is going on here? Is this a fake wedding? You're looking for, like on that show Punk'd. You're waiting for Ashton Kutcher to pop out. But yeah, we didn't tell anybody about that. But yeah, he's one of the best, and I'm so excited for the trajectory that he's been on within the organization. The players that he's brought in, the pipeline that the Cardinals have now, and he'll tell you, look, it's not just him. He's got an incredible staff that works for him. They've got a great nucleus in the front office that work together. But I'm so proud of Randy and the way that he's gone about it.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't get out of here on this. Chip Carey, just talking about baseball savants, a guy that is great at what he does as a broadcaster, sees the game great, a baseball legacy family, and it feels like you guys have been doing games together for a decade, even though it's been half a season. What's it just been like to get to know him, A, as a guy, but B, as a broadcaster? Because, again, the chemistry just feels instant.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Look, first of all, Chip Carey he's an institution, right? The Careys are an institution, and he's so incredibly easy to work with. And the guy that you hear on TV, that's the guy that you're going to get in person. Like, he genuinely is so nice. And I honestly, every day I wait for the other shoe to drop. I'm like, when's Bean Chip going to show up? Like, are we past the warranty where he's just going to come in and just start, this isn't good enough or whatever? But he doesn't. Like, he's genuinely like that good of a dude. And he has the self-deprecating humor as well. He knows when to crack a joke. He knows when to be serious. Knows the game inside and out. He knows when to bust out a Harry Careyism. And it was a perfect fit. You guys know the love and the reverence and the respect that I have for Dan McLaughlin. Mm-hmm. I love Dan. Love Dan to death. Still do to this day.
Absolutely.
If you were going to have to make a change at that position, you were going to have to bring somebody in. I don't see how you could have done any better than Chip Carey. And I love Chip. It was funny, actually, we were in Chicago, and we were having a drink and a bite to eat after one of the games, and lots of Cardinal fans in Chicago. And a guy comes up and he goes, "Aren't you guys sick of each other already?" It's like, no, we hang out all the time. Like it's kind of part of it. You grow a bond, and that's the same bond that he has with Jim Edmonds when they're doing games. Like, that's what it's about. But he has the ability to be a uniter, and when you look at the entire broadcast team, we talk about John Rooney and Ricky Horton and Mike Claiborne, and all of us, everybody hangs out. And I think that Chip has a lot to do with that, where he's kind of uniting the group. So he's been so much fun to work with. The calls have been great. Wish there were better moments all season long, as we've talked about, right? It's Chip's fault, if anybody's wondering.
For sure.
But
it's a superstitious sport.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, he's got to wear it.
It is what it is.
He can wear it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And look, from here on out, maybe he'll be better. But no, he's been so much fun to work with, and honestly, it's an honor, and I think that we're very fortunate to have him be the TV voice of the Cardinals.
You mentioned how he's helped you and just given you things, a fresh set of eyes looking at the way that you work games. I imagine for him, parachuting in, and certainly he's used to the Cardinals having been in Atlanta so long, but what was it like for you trying to kind of help set the table for him and help him maybe understand kind of the intimate parts of the history he was stepping into?
Yeah, it was one. We had the opportunity, fortunately, to work a lot of spring training games together. So we broadcast 15 spring training games, and we did 10 of them together. And I can only imagine me getting thrust into any other organization, right? You get jumped in. And spring training games are hard to do in the first place. Mm-hmm. It's like, this guy pops in, it's the third inning. Like, who the heck is that?
He doesn't have a name on his
jersey? Number 98. Who is that? So it was one where, like, I didn't want to assume that he needed help, but I also wanted to just jump in wherever he needed me, right? So, and that was something where I would ask him, like, hey, you know anything about this guy? He's like, no, I heard his name. I'm like, perfect. I got this guy, you get that guy, because I know you got him. And like we played off each other very, very well in spring training, but it came down to, again, the idea of the story's in front of us, right? You can go ahead and tell that story. I don't care if it's number 98 that you know, or it's Nolan Arenado or Paul Goldschmidt. You're able to tell the story. And he could go out and do a game with people where you got 9 guys on the field, none of them have names on the back, none of them have numbers on the back, and call a game, and you would never know that he has no idea about any one of those guys because he's that talented. But getting into the organization, meeting the people, like I know Jim Edmonds helped him a ton, tried to help him a ton as well, of just meeting everybody. Like, it's hard. Like, you spend time around an organization, you meet a lot of people. There's a lot of faces. What do people do? You know, what are their roles? And that's something that he truly cares about too. Like, he wants to get to know everybody and what they do. And that's kind of, I think, where maybe Jimmy and I could help him the most.
Somebody that we've gotten to know really well over the last 2 decades is Adam Wainwright.
Oh my!
And I don't think we should let the podcast run out without at least mentioning your teammate. I mean, he, unfortunately, this year has not gone how any of us would have hoped related to the team performance and his injuries and probably if he would ask him his performance. But we've got a couple months left, and hopefully we see a strong finish. But what a career, what a future Cardinals Hall of Famer. I don't know that anybody's impacted this city more than Adam. And I don't know that I've met a better human being in my 19 seasons than Adam Wainwright, and he was your teammate.
Guys, I'm the same age as Adam. I know what I feel like when I wake up every morning. How's he still doing this?
It's unbelievable.
With all of the miles that he's put on his body and all of the innings that he's logged and all of the work that he's put in, it truly is remarkable what Adam Wainwright has been able to do. And to call him a teammate and a friend is a blessing. Like, he is, to your point, Joe, he's one of the best humans you'll ever know. Forget baseball player, just one of the best people. Right. Everybody knows what he does with Big League Impact. If you don't know what he does with Big League Impact, look into it, bigleagueimpact.org. I mean, you can get all the information of everything they're doing, people that they're helping in St. Louis, abroad, all the different players around the league that are helping out, that have various charities that they're linked to all over the country. It's amazing what he's doing. But it's so fun to watch him, and over the years, watch him reinvent himself too. Comes into the big leagues as a closer for a World Series team. Yeah. Bing, bang, boom, no big deal. Then a starter, and then one of the most dominant starters in the league, and then get hurt, and then come back and not have the same stuff. There are so many guys that don't have the same stuff, and then they're done because they only know how to pitch one way. Adam is a learner. Like, he wants to always be learning something. Still to this day, I guarantee you that if he sees one of his teammates throw a pitch and it dives a certain way, he's going to walk right over to them and say, hey, how are you holding that? What are you doing with that? What are you thinking with that? How do you manipulate that baseball? And the reason that he does it is because he wants to get better every single day. And we've seen him. We've seen him reinvent himself. We've seen him pitch backwards. We've seen him totally change his diet where, he cut out sugar and carbs and fun, apparently, because those
and he's a foodie, too.
Oh, yes, he is.
Incredibly hard for him.
Big time. But, like, he knew he had to do it to reduce the inflammation in his body and give himself a chance. And, again, it goes down to sacrifice. Right. There's been a lot of sacrifice. And I realize that there's far more sacrifice, in other jobs. Okay, I'm not trying to just put it up on this pedestal, but there is. Like, there's so much sacrifice in whether it's a workout plan or a routine or a diet or time. He's got an incredible family that he loves. Well, he sacrificed a lot of that time with his family over the years to play the game that he loves, and his family has sacrificed that, and his family has been so steadfast. His wife Jenny is a saint. Like, she is the sweetest woman ever, but she knows, like, this has been his passion. It's also been a great pedestal for them and for the charity to affect lives over the years, and that is going to be something. Even when Adam Wainwright is done playing the game of baseball, his impact on the community will last forever.
His legacy will be bigger than
forever.
Baseball.
Absolutely, and that's and when he won the Roberto Clemente Award, I know that's meant more to him than basically anything in the game. You've done Zooms with him at his house. What's the first thing you see behind him is his Roberto Clemente Award. So just an honor to call him a teammate. I can't wait for the strong finish. Couldn't believe, and I don't know when people are going to hear this, but last time out, we saw Adam Wainwright as we're doing it. He was supposed to throw a live batting practice. It was supposed to be 65 pitches, and the dude got the start instead. He went 5 strong innings. He gave the team a chance to win. Ultimately, he didn't get win number 199, but the Cardinals won the game. He's miraculous of some of the stuff that he does, so I can't wait to watch the rest of this season.
Well, I can't wait 3 years when we put a red jacket on him either, but fans make sure you're in the seats on October 1st when we honor Adam at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's going to be a spectacular day. He is just an A-plus human. There is no doubt about it. Brad, we appreciate you taking the time. I know you've been huge for the alumni program. You've always been great to me, and we just appreciate you on a day where you've got to go up and do your full-time job.
It's going to be great.
Stopping by and coming in a little early. We know that's a big deal, so thank you.
No, shoot. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Love what you're doing here, and love what you guys do with the alumni. We appreciate it. Having a guy like me that gets to do stuff like this, I'll tell you, I'm truly blessed to do it.
And hey, we didn't even get to this, but we're on the only 2 triple play combos in the history of fantasy camp.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, we'll get to that in another podcast.
Thanks so much, Brad. We'll be back on September 1st for our season finale. For Brad, Joe, and Larry, I'm Brett. We'll talk to you next time on the Cardinals Insider Podcast.